good boy. Yeah. 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 Hi. Hello. Hello. I was talking about cartoons in the last one. I actually do remember hearing a kind of a creepy theory about Ed, Edd, and Eddy, which I'm sure a lot of folks have heard, but it's the idea that all of the children characters of the show Ed, Edd, and Eddy, which was prominently featured on Cartoon Network in the early to mid 2000s, that all of those kids were actually the cul-de-sac that they lived in was actually purgatory, and that if you look, all of those kids they came from like different periods of time, and so it's like some kids came from like the early 1900s, and then some of the other ones came from the mid like 1950s, and the other kids came from the 70s. And then if you look at it, it's actually kind of a compelling theory. And it's like, of course, like there's no parents, there's no adults ever. And then the cul-de-sac basically just kind of exists. There's no outside world, it's just the cul-de-sac. Lending you to think like, what sort of, is this their universe? Is this the only thing that they know? And why are they there? Who are they waiting for? Hi. Creepy. Creepy. Hi. Hello. Hello. Hey, baby girl. Hey, pretty girl. How you feeling? Yeah? All right. Oh, we're not going to do it like last time. Hello, all you big cat lovers out there. It's me, Derek, again. Welcome to another super fantastic episode of the Walk Around the Compound webcast. Got her in early, all right, at an appropriate time. Got only a couple minutes into the cast and said like, hey, let's get that introduction out there. Let's don't wait until the very end. I bet I've done that like a couple of times. Done that a couple of times in recent casts. I think it's more of just like, you know, I'm just feeling the flow. Some people might look at that and be like, oh, he just doesn't care about casting anymore. He's dialing it in. He's just showing up. He's not trying to hustle for any of us anymore. I see how it is. Well, I'm going to tune out. I don't think it's that. I think it's just that I'm feeling the groove. Just feeling the cast groove, riding the cast waves, you know? I'm a cast surfer. I'm taking you along for my journey. Totally tubular. Totally tubular. I've never gone surfing before. Never gone surfing. But snowboarding. Which I really like snowboarding. It's like snow snurfing. Snow snurfing. Snarf. Oh, you know, we have to go snow snurfing, snarf. Why do you always say that, snarf? Is that like a tick? Is it like a tick that only he has, or is that like a species kind of tick? Almost kind of like a Tourette's kind of thing. Because I mean, from what I understand, and I'm not an expert on Tourette's, and this is not even like trying to make fun, but it's like you can have people with Tourette's, and it may not necessarily manifest itself into, you know, like the traditional, stereotypical kind of Tourette's thing is that people will exclaim inappropriate kind of things, but a person with an actual Tourette's tick might just be just whatever. Yeah, just they could do a thing just impulsively, and they can't help it, whether it be just a sound or a word or just whatever. And I wonder if Snarf, maybe he had Tourette's and Snarf was his tick. Snarf. That's, you know, that's why they were very accepting. They understood that was just a thing that he just had to deal with. it didn't make him less effective as a team member. They accepted him. Snarf. So it's good. It's good on them. Hi. You. Would Tourette's fall under like a neurodivergent kind of thing? Neurologically atypical? Because it's like, again, you're talking about different things like ADHD, like dyslexia. Those would be like a neurodivergent. So it's so much of like all of the rest of like your processing faculties and they're in line with the rest of people's. It's just, I guess, like some of the, what's a good analogy? It's like having a car. It's like having a car that was assembled in one country, but then like it has like aftermarket parts from a different country, and then the operation of the vehicle is just, it gets a little squirrely. Yeah, no, the gears don't shift quite right. Like your RPM or you have an O2 sensors that come over from another place, so that some of your check engine lights are coming on, but they're not actually really reflecting the stuff that's actually going on inside of the engine. Maybe. See, I'm just kind of babbling, though. Hi. If I'm talking a bunch of nonsense and I'm being kind of like stupid about like, because I really don't know about Tourette's. If anyone has it, or if anyone knows anyone who, and I'm talking about diagnosed. I'm talking about like, have you actually been? Because there's a lot of times people will say like, oh, I have bipolar, and it's like, do you really? Well, it's not official, but I'm pretty sure. It's like, then no, I don't know if it's like, I'm not sitting there saying that you don't have it, but if people, there's a lot of time people will want to sit there and talk. They'll look up the WebMD kind of host list of like symptomology, and then they'll say like, oh yeah, I totally got that. And it may not necessarily be the case, or they may actually have one thing, and then they think that they have one thing, and then actually they have another. That's actually true with bipolar disorder and ADHD. Yeah, that there's a lot of co-overlapping symptomology, and there's a lot of people who have ADHD, and because I've looked it up, because I have ADHD, diagnosed, actual, official, and but there's a lot of people who have ADHD, and they get diagnosed as having bipolar. Hi, hello. And then you have to realize that there's different like ways to treat. There's different treatment like approaches for one versus the other. And there's different things that help with one versus the other. And if you sit there and basically you try to treat, like you're trying to treat like a bipolar diagnosis, when really you should be treating an ADHD diagnosis, then you might not necessarily be doing the person like, as good. And then they have like issues with whatever the condition it is that they're having to try to mitigate and manage. And it's not good. And they're like, why am I not getting better? It's, well, maybe because things weren't diagnosed properly. So, yeah. So it's like, even if professionals can get it wrong, which happens. It does. So even if professionals get it, like you think, I Googled a couple of things and I found out that I think that I have something, I know that I have X. Yeah, you know, I had a little bit of schizophrenia, but it cleared up, you know, I took some vitamin C. It's like, that's not how that works. But you see a lot of that. And I think that sometimes, I don't know, and get onto like some sort of soapboxy kind of thing, but I think that sometimes people, it's almost like they kind of want to have something because then it can maybe explain, or they can be like, I am also part of like the special, like a special crew too. And I think that sometimes people think that they have to have something kind of, you know, when I say this, I say quotes busted or broken or wrong with them, so that maybe and I'm not saying everyone who does this is like this, maybe they can use that as an excuse for why maybe things aren't going their way in their life, or maybe they can use it as an excuse for why it is that they kind of don't take ownership over some of the you know, not so helpful elements and aspects of their behavior. I think that people will do that. I think that sometimes people can sometimes just, you know, you get into weirdness or ruts or something like that, and maybe you're not being the tip-top person that you could be or should be. I certainly know that. I'm a flawed individual. I am. I admit that. We all are. And we go through wavering kind of, you know, spectrums of overall kind of wellness and put togetheredness, if that kind of makes sense. And then sometimes we have issues that are kind of the result, or they're contributed by, you know, different things like neurodivergence or mental alignment, or kind of, you know, chemical balances. And then sometimes we have kind of things that aren't going our way, sometimes because we're not doing all the things that we should be doing. And there is definitely a mode of personal responsibility. Like I have, you know, again, I have diagnosed ADHD. Does not mean, and it can explain a lot of different things that I have struggles with, that I have issues with, that are more difficult for me than sometimes they can be for other people. But it doesn't mean that I use those things as a crutch. I try to, you know, understand like what my limitations, or try to adjust the approaches that I have. Hi, Jake. But to think that I don't have absolute, or that I shouldn't have absolute like responsibility or accountability for who it is that I am and what it is that I am and how it is that I go about my life. I mean, I can't sit there and just say like, well, because I have X, that means that I'm not responsible for all of the other stuff. It's not how that works. It almost makes it to where it's like you have to have even more responsibility because you know that things can go askew. It's like, I know that there's so many different ways in which my life can get messed up if I'm not doing the proper things. So, like, whoa, it's getting windy. But yeah, especially with like ADHD people, it's like being that much more on top of like weird, like things like nutrition and sleep, and like, because that has an effect on neurochemistry, making sure that I'm like being active and going outside, and making sure that I'm putting up like substructures of like structured time. So like there's a huge amount of personal accountability and personal responsibility that I have to take to help mitigate the effects of the condition that I was diagnosed with. And I don't put that on other people. I don't blame other people. Can't. It's my problem. And it's my life. So, I think, and this is not everyone, but I think that there's plenty of people, who things maybe not necessarily going their way. You know, or they're experiencing issues, anxiety, or this, or glumness. And then they want to sit there and say like, oh, well, I feel this way, or this stuff is going on in my life because of X condition that they don't put into the like, oh, that was never officially diagnosed. I just said. I'm saying on the internet that I have X. And that's the reason why things aren't going my way. And it's like, I don't know if that's the... Because again, it's setting yourself up for... It's setting yourself up for disappointment. Again, you can sit there and basically put all of your issues out into the world and label them through a lens of externality. Meaning everything that's wrong with me is because of all of this. And nothing is because of what's happening here. It just takes away it takes away that sense of accountability, it takes away that sense of ownership, and it takes away your ability. It takes away your ability to actually enact good, earnest, like positive kind of ownership over yourself and over your life. It takes away your agency. That's what I think. That's how I feel. That's my opinion. And hopefully it's not too controversial of one. And I'm not sitting here, I'm not one of those people, because the people might hear what I'm saying and they might sit there and think like, oh, well, everything is, like self-imposed, like, oh, so you're saying like, oh, you just have responsibility for everything is self-imposed or something like that. That's not kind of what I'm saying. I'm not sitting there saying that life can't really throw some significant curveballs and some significant wrenches your way. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that the crashing tide of life's circumstances can't beat down and weather even the strongest of rocky shorelines. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that if you frame everything through the lens of, oh, all of my problems are the result of everything that happens out here, and I have no control over any of it. If you frame everything like that, then it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. And you're never going to be able to have like that grip, that grasp, that ability to actually make meaningful change. And sometimes meaningful change, it comes in the form of just little bitty steps towards just wellness. I'm going to try to take these little bitty steps. I'm going to try to have as much of a positive attitude on certain things, or because that's the other thing, like fake positivity just for the sake of positivity is not something I think is actually like the best idea all the time. What I think people should go for more often is just the notion of just overall just kind of resilience and just trying to go through life without being rattled. Trying to understand that yes, things are going to happen. Things are going to come at me. Circumstances of life are going to smack me upside the head. And if I can keep my head, even from like small things to big things, if I can try to go and be able to experience the litany of human emotions and human experience without excessive levels of distress, then that can lend itself to just overall wellness. And that can lend itself to that notion of positivity and joy and goodness and happiness. Okay, we got this guy. Yeah. Oh, hold on. That's it. Yeah. Pin was in the door. Hey. Hey. Wait. Look. He's like, this like a, if ever there was like a look of incredulity, just like, this motherfucker. It's like, he really is giving me that really look. Like, really? You're doing this right now? Really? Hi, Lakai. Alright, I'm gonna leave you alone. He's just like, thank you. My gosh. And this is coming from someone, like, who, because some people might feel like, well, that sounds really great in theory and everything, but I still have X and X and X and X problem. And I'm like, I'm not saying that you don't. I hear you. But I'm saying, like, this has come from someone who, like, has had a lot of issues over the course of his life, you know, that ended up manifesting into various different things. I mean, dealt with a lot of different, you know, satellite things that developed as a result of ADHD, elevated levels of, like, paranoia, anxiety, like, you know, spiraling bouts of depression that got, you know, fairly dire at times. You know, like getting into having instability, like have an extreme effect on my relationships, on my sense of enrichment, my sense of purpose, torpedoing the relationship I was having with my loved ones, substance abuse, all that stuff. And I still sit there and say, like, I can take ownership over this. I can still take responsibility for the things that are within the realm of my control. And I think that that's another big thing, to be able to identify the things that are in your control and then try to fix the things that you can. And if things are outside of your control, do your best to just build your resilience to that stuff. And I think that if more people do stuff like that, try to simplify those elements and aspects of their life, they'll kind of have a bit better of a go of things. And am I just hunky-dory perfect and everything? No, I'm still going through all sorts of building and growth. I'm still on a journey of overall kind of wellness and development. But that journey is little bitty steps. And purposefulness, and understanding what it is that you're actually doing, and understanding what it is that your goals should be or need to be. And that also kind of goes into that notion of, like, getting the help if you can. Getting the help. Because what the help does is it helps to identify, okay, well, here's the thing that seems like you kind of got going on, struggle. And then here are the tried and true tested roadmaps to help alleviate and mitigate and fix a lot of that struggle. And then there's the difference, and this is something that I've dealt with, like, in the past, where basically I would go and I would seek help. I would try to figure out something, or I'd go talk to someone, go to therapy, do whatever. And then I would learn a bunch of really great and awesome sounding academic principles with regards to just mental health. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is great. And I know I am so much more equipped. I'm able to put some new tools into my Batman belt. And then I thought that was good enough. Like, learning about the stuff was good enough. But it's so much more than that. It's not just learning about the stuff, it's actually putting those things into actual legitimate practice. And a lot of the stuff is just, it can just be a lot of times it's like tedious. A lot of times the stuff is like, okay, talking about the things, or okay, I need you to read this article over here and we're going to have a discussion about this, and I need you to write down these kind of things, and oh, you're assigning me homework? Yeah, I got to do, okay, but it's like you got to actually do the stuff. And then I'm going to do this thing every day, or I'm going to meditate here, and I'm going to take 10 minutes to do this, and I'm going to make sure that I have a schedule over here so that, you know, my deadlines and the things that I have responsibilities don't turn into these insurmountable kind of tasks that become crippling and freezing. And it's like little things. You have to look at and identify and say, like, okay, where can I fix and where can I adjust? And then you have to start, again, it's like, you don't want to sit there and try to enact like huge amounts of change in short periods of time. Hi. Hi. Hello. I mean, blech. Yuck. What am I, That's why, like, a lot of people, they'll go into these kind of like crusades of wellness and crusades of betterment, and they bite off way more than they should. Bite off more than they can chew at any one given moment. And that's the other thing. Yeah. It is small and is incremental, and a lot of times, like, journeys of wellness are frustratingly slow. They're horrifyingly, frustratingly slow, where you really have a hard time actually seeing and viewing and taking into account the actual change and progress you're making. because if it's really truly goodness, honest progress, like it is inchy squinchy. It is inchy squinchy and incremental. But yeah, I've actually, and here's the other thing. Oh my gosh. Oh, am I doing, you know, am I perfect? Oh, no. But am I a lot more like self-accepting and self-aware and forgiving and practicing self-kindness towards my goals? Yes. You know, I still have like just a completely wonkered dopaminergic system, you know, from, I mean, years and years and years of just dangerous level, you know, drinking, stuff like that. But then it's like, okay, well, you know, you have a dopaminergic system that's all out of whack, just from the get-go because of ADHD. And then now it's like, okay, so gross. You know, now it's like, yeah, okay, so it's like you ain't drinking so much, but then like the parts of your brain, like the little gremlin parts of your brain are just like, wow, how about if we just scroll on our phone a lot? Way more than we ever did before. And then like the smart parts of myself are just like, okay, no, we can't do that. We can't just take one and just replace it for the other. But then the gremlin is, of course, just like, but I wanna. And then sometimes the gremlin kind of has his way, and then sometimes you have to sit there and try to grab the steering wheel and be like, no, we have to park the car. Gremlin's like, no. But it's slow progress. Whereas before, it might be like, you piece of crap, this is exactly why you're not going to get good. There's no self-control. You just can't do the things, and like you're inherently weak. And this is, yeah, you have some of those negative self-talk things, but one of the most important things you can do early on is to truly, honestly learn to practice that notion of self-kindness, because then what it does is it changes that inner dialogue. It changes your own inner dialogue to more of a positive and kind of constructive, like, hey, this behavior that you're engaging in right now is not helpful. And I know that that's something that, hey, like you kind of, but let's see if we can kind of, you know, let's see if we can kind of adjust things. Let's see if we can kind of, you know, head things off at the pass. And then when you do stuff, or when you do engage in like, okay, like a cessation of unhelpful behavior or a resumption of helpful behavior, you have like a legitimate kind of like, awesome, good job, bud, kind of those moments. And you can train yourself to have that type of stuff. Is it there all the time? Is it perfect all the time? No, it's not. Is it there a lot more than it was before? Absolutely. And is it helping to slowly inch? Is it helping me on that path towards inching my way towards just better, just a better integrated relationship, just with myself, my sense of purpose, my sense of responsibility, my family, my work? Yes. 100% yes. So not without its pitfalls and step backs and frustrations and issues? Of course not. Do I accept those things? Yes. Accept those as part of the path, part of the journey. I don't overthink it. I don't overthink that stuff. Like, oh, you're having a couple weeks where things are really going good and you're doing well and you're keeping to schedules and you're doing all this stuff and you're doing all this self-care things, and then you have a few days where it's just like everything just kind of craps the bed and you're not doing all the stuff, and then you're not taking things as like seriously, and you're not sticking to your plans, and you're letting yourself just like overly indulge or be lazy or something like, and then, but you're like, okay, that's okay. We're good. Get back on up. You're good. Yeah, that's like one of those kind of things where it's like, oh, I should go for a run and then meditate when I say like things like overindulge, where it's just like, hey, you should like go for a run and meditate, and then I'm just like, I'd rather scroll through Reddit. And then it's just like, well, if you do that, if you don't do the, like, we can scroll through Reddit later, but let's see if we can go do the run now, because then it'll help to change, it'll help to make you a little bit more chemically well balanced, and it will make it so that you don't sit there and just try to like chase that dragon. Because if you just basically sit down and start doing the Reddit thing now, you're just gonna just like, and I see a clear difference. A huge difference if I'm doing those self-care things, if I'm being nutritionally sound, if I'm sleeping well, if I'm exercising, and if I'm doing like those kind of mindfulness and meditation kind of things. When I sit down to kind of scroll and do Reddit, it's like, all right, and I get to this point where I'm like, okay, and then I put it down, and it's good. If I don't do those other things, I'm just like scroll. Huge difference. And again, it goes back to that notion of like, I have to take ownership. I got to take responsibility over my stuff. And you can too, whatever your thing might be. Don't think that you can't. You have it in you. We all do. We all do have that in us. Hi. Yeah, I wasn't I wasn't anticipating or thinking that this was going to turn into this. But hey, that's okay. That's all right. It turned into one of these ones. Yeah. I literally thought I was fully saying like, hey, just go around for like 15 to 18 minutes and just interact with the cats, and then that's it. And then all of a sudden we start going into a deep dive into mental health stuff. I know that that's not a lot. Some people, that's definitely not. And I understand. There's a lot of people, and that's understandable, and that's okay. There's a lot of people who watch, and they're like, well, I don't watch it for those types of things. I don't watch it for the commentary on that type of stuff. I watch it, primarily just for the silliness and for the cats, and so I can kind of shut my brain off for some of those kind of things. But then I know that it does help. It really does. It helps a lot of folks who, kind of ride along on their own form of struggle bus. And also, it helps me too. So, yeah. Hopefully, you don't mind and let me indulge in that kind of thing. And don't get me wrong, the grand vast majority of these casts will still just be lighthearted, silly, and just cat-focused, cat-centric, all that stuff. Anywho, thanks for watching this episode of the Walk Around the Compound webcast. Hashtag Dorbus Award in the comment section below. Like and subscribe for all of your big cat goodness. And if you want to learn more about the facility around me, you can always visit the website carerescuetexas.com for more information. And I'll see you folks later. All right. Bye-bye.